So it's already almost 5 after, and we'll go ahead and dive right in. Just really quick, since 90% of you here didn't come to either one of the Fusion 360 sessions, we'll go ahead and do a quick introduction of who we are and what we're going to cover today. So really quick, what we want to do is really give you guys who have laptops, or whoever brought a laptop, a quick introductory of how we're going to program a part. What's holding you between the free beer is this class. We want to make sure we get out of here on time so you guys can move to the next session as well. What we will get into later on is that as we offer, there'll be Fusion 360 classes, there's a lot of resources. End of the day, we have Jeremy here, who's one of our technical specialists, as well as myself, Rich Chan, who works on Fusion a lot. I work on Fusion a lot too, specifically CAM. And we'll just kind of walk through and keep it simple, right? The goal here, once again, is to program a part. The goal here is not to answer specific questions you might have on Fusion or things you want to go off track on. We can save that for later on. We want to get through a complete workflow of going from A to Z at the end of the day. Any questions at all before we dive in? And expectations? Good. So number one is, for the people that have laptops, is Fusion open? Question? Good? Awesome. Perfect. If you don't have it open, give it a second. Number one is on we call the data panel, where all your projects are. If you hit that little checkered box at the very top, you're going to scroll all the way down to the very bottom. This is all the great training resources we have, okay? And it's called the Fusion 101 training right there, okay? Now you either click on the link and that takes you to our website. We can download PDF documents that you can print out and go through and mark up and educate yourself on. It's kind of cut off right here at the very bottom. And then two, when you double click on this project, it brings you to some files that I'm going to go back there and we're going to walk through in a second. Now, what we're going to look at and what we're going to kind of get the perspective on is working in 2D and 3D machining specifically. Now, number one is when I double click on the Fusion 360 training, it brings me to, in my data panel, all these projects that we have set up. You can see we go through introductory, managing data, drawings, animations, sketching, sculpting, modeling, assemblies, everything along that way. So this is going to be your training to get up to speed and using Fusion. Okay?
You should all see this.
Okay?
On your screen.
Yep. So once again, if I go back, I hit this little back arrow to get back to all my projects. If I come down to the Fusion 101 training, double click on it, it will bring me here. If you accidentally click on the link that says go to, this is what's going to happen. It'll go straight to a web browser, and it will bring me right here to where I can now click on, let's say, Sculpt, and that will now bring up a PDF document that I can download and walk through and give you step-by-step tutorials on how to use other features inside of Fusion. So another great resource you guys can leverage if you want specifics on modeling, rendering, animations, or anything along that way.
So everything we're going to do today is online, and there are YouTube videos.
Yep.
If you want to watch it again and try it again.
Exactly. So if you actually go to YouTube,
What?
just really quick, sorry, and if I type in Fusion 360, come to our YouTube channel, and right here, if I click on that, you can see all the videos that we have on Fusion. You can see right here, CAM tutorials. So if you want to take it a step further and learn about some of the other kind of tips and tricks that we've done as a team, plenty of tutorials to go through here, under 10 minutes each. As well, feel free to go to NYCNC as well. He's done some great tutorials on using Fusion 360 as well. So a lot of different resources. You get the perspective of Autodesk as well as a perspective of a user going through and walking through Fusion in itself. Great. Any questions right now? Don't be shy. Hands on. Great. So once we're inside of the Fusion 101 training, you're going to go down to that last one called 09 machining. Double click on that. Give it a second to load.
Okay. Keep going.
Nope, no problem. So what I want you guys to do is double click on the 2D strategies one, and we'll open this guy up right here. So this part is right out of our training. This is a standard part. You guys can go back home, log into Fusion, and finish this exercise if you choose to, okay? So this is a great part. It's set up in a vise, and the reason why we have it set up in a vise is so you guys can understand too, is like, well, you know, where is the positioning going to be? How am I going to do my setup? How do I orientate everything? Everything along that way.
Did you create an Autodesk?
Any questions right now?
So that's
Great.
You don't,
So
you have to create an account.
let's talk about the environment, right? By default, I'm in the modeling environment. How do I know that I'm in the modeling environment? For a t-shirt. Exactly. Now, if you want to close that data panel, if you click on that little hide data panel, little checkered box, that will just close the data panel up and make your real estate a little bit more on screen that you can work with. But as John mentioned, very top left, right up here, called model. If I click on that, it drops down, and these are all my workstations. Or workspaces, we call it. Sorry. Model, patch, render, animation, cam. Everyone's looking great from back here. Rendering's always cool. If you guys want to go to marketing and take some of your images, I'm just going to show you. I can click on render. That brings me into this render environment, and I can go through and now leverage and really showcase what I've designed for marketing images. I can sit here, rotate this guy around, and you can see exactly how things are going to look here. I can actually take anything that I create and send it straight to the cloud and do cloud computing too, which is always nice. So what I want you guys to do is drop down under model, please, and come on down straight to CAM. And that puts us in the CAM environment. Okay. So I'm assuming for the people that have a laptop, who has used Fusion? If you just raise your hand for me, please. Two, three people? Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the mouse movement, right? And number one is if you hold down your middle mouse button, the wheel, hold that down, that pans it, the screen. Get a feel for that. If you hold down the shift key and your middle mouse button, that rotates the model. Rotates the model. Get a good feel for that. If that alone, if you hit escape, that clears out everything. If that alone, if you come all the way down, and it's kind of tough because of the screen, but at the very bottom, if there's these little kind of icons. The first one is called orbit, so you can click on that and rotate it around that way. You can click on look at. You have pan. So there's a couple things that if you choose to use some of these icons at the bottom to move it around, great. But personally, as a CAD user, the mouse. So once again, what is the rotate command? Shift. Middle mouse button. Beautiful. And what is the pan?
Middle button.
Just hold down the middle mouse button, that moves it. So also, if you want to look at your traditional drawing views, like front, top, right, ISO, at the very top corner, yeah, exactly. The very top right-hand corner of the screen, we call this the view cube. And this is a great way to kind of orientate your model. So if you hover all the way over to the very top right up here, you can see, if you click on top, it moves it to the top. You hit the little home icon, that rotates it and brings it back to an isometric view. You click on the front, moves it to the front. So this is another great way just to orientate the model in itself.
what I would like.
RC Flyer 39 is right.
Correct.
Yep,
Yep, totally. Great question. So the question was, I'm running on a MacBook, you guys are running on Windows. All these same configurations are exactly the same on both operating systems. Except for, when you want to do like selecting multiple things, you have to hit the control button versus the command button, right? Those are the two big things that we see that are a little bit different between it. Who has used here in this room CAD? Once again, you raise your hand. Perfect. Who's used SolidWorks? Okay, so a lot of people. So, once you start using the product and you want that familiarity of using CAD, we have that functionality of changing our presets and our mouse.
He clicked his name.
Yep. So just
Preferences.
So if I click on my name, drop down, I can go to Preferences, and just showing you guys, but we won't change it. Is if I go to General, under General, we have something called Change the Zoom to Alias, Inventor, or SolidWorks.
If you're used to their way
If
of
you're
rotating
used to their
and
way,
zooming, it'll convert it.
You can definitely do that. But we won't do that today, because when I tell you Shift, Control, you at least know what I'm talking about in regards to working with Fusion. Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
Middle mouse button on a MacBook?
Middle mouse button on a MacBook.
Oh, what is it?
Oh, what is it? Oh, it's doing the pan, too.
There is no middle mouse button.
Oh, if you use talking about a trackpad?
Yeah.
Okay, so trackpad is a little bit different, right? So the nice thing is that, do you use a Magic Mouse too for Mac?
I have not. I'd be willing to, because I love having the fact that Fusion works on my MacBook.
Perfect. So, it's that one thing you have to get accustomed to, and I use a mouse, but if on a MacBook, if I pinch like this, it zooms.
Why don't we, so there's an entire help subject on how to use a trackpad. Someday Apple will get its head somewhere in the right place and embrace 3-button mouses. That's just pure spite, I think, at this point, when they don't embrace 3-button mouses. But you can use any 3-button mouse you want with a Mac.
Great question. All right. So, any other questions? Cool. So step number 1. Anybody know what step number 1 would be right now? Yes, sir. Setup. So think about it like this. When you look at this, the ribbon bar right here, we're going to go basically from left to right. That's all we're going to do. We'll do a couple 2D machining paths, but the value here, what you guys can be productive immediately, is 3D machining, adaptive clearing. We're going to rough this out. We're not going to pick selection by selection. We want to speed up this process. So all we got is half an hour left, right? And I want to at least go from A to Z here. So if you click on Setup, let's go and click on that. What do you notice automatically? And what do you think the problem is when you look at this environment? Because this is what's going to happen if you decide to bring in an assembly, a vise, an example of the machine of the Tormach, you see this. Why is that? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The stock encapsulates the device as well.
Exactly. And so basically what it is even if I hide the device still exists. It's still going to give me the same image. So when I machine, and the reason why I'm using this part is so you guys can get all different sides of the coin here, what to expect. And this is how it would work when you make parts. You're going to have assemblies that parts go into, and you're going to work off of that, because Fusion is an entire solution, design to fabrication. So when you look at it here, we need to tell the software, I'm going to only machine that block in the center, right? So step number 1 is you can see where it has the Setup tab active right here. Beautiful, thank you, Vanna. And then if you scroll down to Model, we're going to say, well, we want to select the model that needs to be machined. So if you click on that it says nothing, you click on that guy, you're activating it, telling, well, now let me go ahead and select, if I hover over, that piece, like that. So I would like everybody just to kind of do that. So one more time, I'm going to cancel out. I'm going to go to Setup. I'm going to come on over under Model, click on Model, and I'm going to just move on over and make sure I select that piece right there. Okay? So when we look at this now, this solves half of our problem, right? What else do you think is the next problem here when you look at it?
Origin.
Well, I have my origin.
What's not
it's not the correct way where we want it, right? And where we want to tip off and where we want to reference off of. So where would Z be coming down from? Top.
Left, yeah.
And we can have it left corner, center, whatever, right? But today we'll just keep it simple and we'll work this way. So what I'd like you to do, and there's a couple tricks, and I'll show you a couple different ways of working with this, is it's sensitive, right? So I can actually click on and let me show you first, then I'll have you guys do. So I'll show and do. So one option is if I actually like click on, you see how it highlights, if you just hover over, just to get an idea, how it highlights these, the arrows and the stem of the arrow. If I click on, just to show you, like the head of the arrow, it like flips the direction of where Z is, right? If I click on the stem of the arrow, just to show you, and I click like a perpendicular face I want it to be on, like this top face, it orientates it perpendicular to that face. So I can now flip the head of the arrow up to have it positive Z. Or, to kind of show you again, because this is probably the most difficult part in Fusion, and this is not difficult, honestly, but this is the hardest thing we're going to do today, is just orientating where you want your Z to be. Everything else is going to be gravy going downhill. So once again, I picked model, I picked what I want, the arrow's in the wrong location. I have another option of saying where it says under orientation, I can drop that and say, let me select Z-axis, plane, X-axis, and if I just click a face, like that top face, it automatically is going to put it that way too. So I showed you two different ways of doing this. So once again, it depends which way is easier for you. All right? Now personally, me coming in and doing and picking this face, this part, and saying, let me just pick the stem and then this face, it's quicker for me. Or you can come down here and pick the Z axis / plane and then click that top face and then orientate it there. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't done so.
Just do it one more time, please.
Sure thing. So once again, if I click
Set up
model, I got my model, all good, which we all should be at. If I just drop down under orientation, come here to select Z-axis, and then just pick this top face, it automatically is going to put it right there for me. Now, if you go to our YouTube channel, I did a video specifically on setup. Every single option through setup. I can create other points. I can pick the center of a circle as my reference. All that kind of great stuff, it's there. If you want to take it
The
that
reason we spend so much time on this, talking about X, Y, and Z, it's arbitrary and can be a little ambiguous. So knowing how to pick and make what you want to be up and down becomes, it shouldn't be, but it's different. You wrap your mind around which
Yep.
way is up.
Yep.
And if I'm going to pick my plane based on axis plane, this is like, to me, like, some people read this and know what it means. I read it and go, what?
Yeah.
For him, he picks the thing and says, I know I want this to be up, I'll pick it, pick the face I want it up from, and he's done. So that's why we're, laboring over for 5 minutes over why, because it's confusing.
Yep.
Just
So
by
now,
its nature.
yeah, totally, and that's a great explanation, Jeremy. I think now the second part we need to think about too is the size of our stock, right? Because what is your first operation? What's the first operation you guys think we're going to do today?
Roughing.
Well, I'd love to rough, and you can definitely do that. Rough it all out. But what's before roughing sometimes? Squaring out, or facing, right? Facing it, then roughing it to take out all of it. And we could just say, rough it all out without even facing it. That's totally fine. But I think a lot of people have invested in fly cutters or a face mill, and I think it's key that you could always start that way too. But I love that answer too. So number one, we just want to define it. And in this imperfect world here, what we're going to do is we're just going to add some stock at the top, at the bottom, because really, where are we going to machine down to? Really kind of like, we're really just going to machine maybe up to like this edge or that face, because technically we would flip it over, put in some soft jaws, and then face the back side to get however thickness that is, but we're only machining the top half of this part for demonstration purposes. So let's hit the stock icon, the tab, and And number one, we're working in millimeters, which is fine, and I'll show you guys how to switch between millimeters and inches. You can key in inches if you want to, or millimeters, whatever. We can simultaneously go back and forth, and it will convert it for you. I think we can do equations like 2 + 2 equals, and it'll give it to you too, but we won't go there. So number one, though, is I'm just going to look at my part, okay, and I'm fine, just for demonstration purposes, we'll just keep these parameters right now. We'll just keep it simple, use what this is. We won't mess with the stock, but let me just show you what you can do, is I can come in here and change per fixed, per relative, per cylindrical, if you're working with cylindrical stock. So you have a lot of different options for stock. So we have everything how we want. Just go ahead and please say OK, or you can hit the Enter key, and it would accept that as well. Okay. Okay.
The orientation that you just picked has nothing to do with the way the stock was, or the piece was drawn.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. So, great question. So, a question that just came up in the back of the room was, the orientation I picked, which we call the work coordinate system, has nothing to do with the orientation of the design of the model, from the CAD model, right? Because remember, with Fusion, we can open up all different CAD files, and their origins can be all designed in the corner or whatever. The nice thing is that you can just set your new work coordinate system, which is going to match to where you want your machine to touch off at, right? This is the center, which is going to reference off of, okay? So number one is the face mill, okay? And what I would like everybody, and any questions so far? Don't be shy. This is hands-on. You're not going to slow anybody down. If you do, we'll just escort you out of the room. Someone else is waiting for your spot. I'm just joking. But I want you guys to really grasp of workflow here. So we're going to go to.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Can you use the actual model as your stock?
Yes, you can. You can. So what I like to do too is, because sometimes you already have it down, the model, and all you want to do is add a pocket, and that's it. So you can do that. And just to show you really quick is, what you can do is under stock, under fixed side, you have something called from solid, and you go pick that solid. What I like to do is I like to make a copy of my part, and then go pick that copy to reference off as the solid. Great. So where would face milling be found under? 2D. Good old 2D, right? So if you come on over and you drop down under 2D, you're going to see face. And it's nice because we give you guys a nice little visual picture of what it is, and all that kind of great stuff. If you hit the little, anyhow, so let's go ahead and just click on face, and it brings up this interface. This interface will be identical for everything we're going to do going forward. So there's no tricks here through each operation. It's going to be very straightforward. Okay? What's step number one, you think, now? Tool, right? Because we're just going to work tab by tab by tab. Really, with face, we're not going to even touch anything, because the beauty about Fusion is that it recognizes the stock, it recognizes the top of the face, and it's just going to go ahead and machine and face whatever material is there. You'll see that. So step number one, let's go ahead and click on Select for a tool, and it brings up our tool library. Now, hopefully your tool library looks very similar to my tool library, minus a couple libraries. But you see that it automatically, see where it says for operation it has face, and for tool type it has face mill. It just knew that I picked the face mill or face operation. Thank you, Jeremy. And it filtered out all the tools that I have in my library saying face mill, which is nice. Speeds this up. So do you guys have one that's a 50 millimeter face mill? You're there? You guys see it?
Yeah.
Perfect. So just go ahead and double click on one you have there. Double click accepts it, puts the image of the face mill. You have the feeds and speeds, which you can adjust, and you can save that off now as a new tool, and you have your custom tool, which we can always talk about later on. Yes, sir?
So those feeds and speeds that are in this chart, are they coming off of a tool chart that you've already established?
It's like a standard one that we have. I mean, there's no specific, because that you'd have inserts that you can go buy from Sandvik or here or wherever. It's just,
So you can't save that speeds and speeds for that tool in aluminum or that tool in cast?
No, you can't.
You can't, okay.
This is out of the box, it's generic, I wouldn't necessarily trust it unless you don't
No,
really
I
care.
understand, but you can save what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
about.
yeah. If you're cutting foam, who cares, right?
Yeah,
Use it.
I understand.
But yeah, perfect. And we could talk about creating custom tool libraries if you guys have your own set, and we can show you how to do that. It's very, very simple. So all you have to do once you have that, we're not going to even talk about any other tabs because there's no need to with the face. It recognizes it. Just hit enter for me. And it's automatically going to throw that tool path.
All those tool libraries are saved in the cloud too, right?
I'm sorry? Yeah, tool libraries, you have the option of saving it locally as well as on the cloud. So any workstation you access, you can access.
Right, so if you save it in the cloud, if you think about that, any computer you log into automatically has all your tool libraries,
Correct.
which is pretty awesome.
Yes.
And then saving it locally would probably allow you to import it into another system
Totally.
and pass them around too.
Yep. Yep. Which is great. So, how do we verify our work? How do we make sure we're cutting material? We're going to simulate it. And the easiest way to simulate is one, if you just, there's always going to be two ways of doing things. Is I can either right click or I can just go on my ribbon bar and click simulate. Just like that. So if you click on setup, that setup you have here, I can right click, drop down, and say simulate. Right click, simulate, or just come up here and say under actions, say simulate. And it brings me right into the simulation environment. Okay? And you see the little play button.
You're gonna see like a movie down below.
Yep. Okay. So if you, once again, right click on setup, you can come here and activate simulate. Brings that up. And you have like a kind of a bottom of the barrel play button down there to next you have the fast forward to next operation and so forth. Bless you.
Thank you.
So I want to see the stock. And what do you guys think I need to do now? Click stock, right? I hope you recorded that right there.
Yeah.
Damn it. So if you click on stock, you have the option to, change all these different types of materials and, make it look pretty and blah, blah, blah. I like to keep it on default because the nice thing about default is that it color changes each operation you go through, which is nice to see like which phase of operation you're going through. But then two, all you have to do is I can either make it transparent or not, but if I just say now play, it's going to go through and face the part.
And this slider controls how fast it plays.
Yep. I can hit play again.
On the bottom, so if you want to go,
Yep.
just turn it up.
Play again, just like that.
Don't try to make yours rotate like he is, he's cheating. He's using a special device to do that.
So, very straightforward. Any questions on the face operation?
Rock and roll.
Good. So, to get out of simulate, you either can hit close.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot. So if I hit escape, that just, actually, no, you have to hit close with this one. So hit close to cancel the simulation. So what's step number 2 now? I mean, there's a lot of step number 2s, right? It depends on how you want to machine this guy. But, we know we need to rough out probably, it'd be nice to rough out the top pocket, the outside, as well as that other kind of front pocket that we have there, all in one shot. Adaptive clearing.
Adaptive cleaning.
Yep. Now there's 2 ways of adaptive clearing. You have, if I drop that under 2D, which is 2D adaptive, and then you have 3D adaptive, okay? And the reason why we give you both, initially, when Fusion came out, we had 2 tiers. We had basic, and we had ultimate kind of approach. And what we did is we said, we're going to put ultimate into retirement early for a little bit until we come out with 5-axis. and now give everything to everybody under basic. So what you initially got in basic was just 2.5 axis. And if you wanted 3 axis machining, you pay extra to get 3 axis. But we decided to give it to everybody. So at the end of the day, you just want to use 3D adaptive clearing, period. Because there's no point to use 2D anymore because you got 3D. That's kind of the beauty about it.
Sorry,
Yes.
to face the part, let's delete this and do it again.
Yes, go and delete that guy and let's go up to face.
2D
Face. Yep.
face.
The tool is, go and click that.
Mirror.
Yep. And now just say OK. Hit OK. That's it. There you go. That's it.
The whole face, so that's why, because you picked the surface.
Yeah, if you pick a surface, it's only going to look at that surface. The nice thing with the face profile, it knows exactly what to machine. There you go. Okay. So what we're going to do is if you hop over to 3D and go to adaptive clearing, just click on that guy. And then we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper, talk about linking and the passes tab too, how we can adjust offsets, lead in, lead out. If we want to helix down or plunge drill straight down. Depends on if we're doing a finishing pass or a roughing pass, it just depends. But we're going to get into a little more of these details if we have time to, but at least want to get you guys to this operation and another operation. So what's step number 1, you guys think? Tool, right? I mean, we can't use the face mill. So we're going to actually come on over here to select. And I want to show you a little bit about this library, which is really nice. Is you notice that it automatically said, I'm going to do a 3D profile, and I'm automatically going to go with the bull nose end mill. Totally cool. Me, I just like using flat end mills, right? Just personal preference. So if you hop on over to where it says tool type and you drop down, you can like pick any one of these tools and it'll filter out in the library those tools. So I would like you guys to move over to 2 steps up, which is called flat end mill. And now you see just automatically like filtered out flat end mill. Do you guys have an 8mm flat at the very top? Just curious if you guys have that.
Yes.
Yeah, great, perfect. So with that said, you know, what's nice too is, let's say you knew you had an 8 and you had like 10 libraries. I can click this little guy. I'm going to show you guys. I can click diameter and type in 8, and it will filter through and find all my 8mm flat end mills for me.
So you can do a range where you type 8 and it links the 2, and so
Yep.
it only finds 8.
Yep. But just showing you guys so you guys are aware, you have to spend 2 minutes trying to hunt through your libraries. I'm just going to turn this diameter off, and it just unfilters everything, which is really nice. And all I have to do now is hit enter, and it accepts it. Yeah, I know the tool's a little bit long. I think the flute is decent, but we'll just go with this for
You
them.
picked the 6mm, by the way.
Did I pick 6?
Yep.
Okay. Let me go ahead and change that to 8.
You're back in bold.
Oh, I'm back in bold. Thank you. Flat, 8. There we go. Perfect. Okay, great. Okay. Now next is geometry tab. And if you click on that, we're just going to talk about it. There's no need to pick geometry with 3D machining because it's going to look at that entire model and just rough it out right now for us. Okay. But what I want to do is I want to just explain. I would like you guys to hop onto the passes tab and just click on that guy for me right now. This is where, and we're not going to go into detail, but this is where you can see tolerances to the optimum load. How much, what's the percentage I want to use? It's typically 40% of the cutter that we're using with adaptive. Machine cavities, the step down, I want to work with fillets. If I click onto linking, I can change the lead in. If I drop down to ramp, the ramp condition. There's a lot of options here that we're not going to go into detail, but it's there. If you're wondering, hey, can you guys do this? We can do it. It's right there under passes or linking. That's where you can spend the time making those transitions of leading in, leading out, going over in the lead so you don't have maybe like a little kind of dimple on the side or a little nip. You know, so there's a lot of options there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit enter, and it's going to accept, and it's going to crank away the you can see my adaptive. So go ahead and hit enter for me, please. And it's going to analyze the part right there and rough everything out. So we're basically 90% of the way done. All we got to do is probably bore the holes out, drill, and do a chamfer or spot drill, whatever you want to do. But we're there, right? So I'd like you guys to simulate it, right? So if I just click on Setup, come over to, on my Actions tab, hit Simulate. And you know how that this is the little trick I like? It's just more of like eye candy. But see how the toolpaths are all there and it kind of is a little bit too busy? Under where it says toolpath, how mine says all toolpaths, if I drop down, I like to pick tail. And that gives it kind of a better look. Turn on the stock. So once again, under toolpaths, come down to mode, and I like to pick tail. And then if I hit,
Tail just one after another. Right?
yep, one
So
after
all
another.
at once.
Yep. So I can make it transparent, and you guys will just see right off the bat. First, I'm going to face it, and tailing. You can see how the toolpath is going to start disappearing as we start going through. Tail. Then come in, and I can speed it up.
Dragging the little slider. here,
Dragging a
speed
little
it up.
slider down here.
Speed up this video.
I did it again. I'm only making a hole in there, I'm not finishing it. This time I didn't pick any geometry.
And rough it out. Yes, sir.
Will it choose cavities and stuff based on their tool diameter?
Correct. So what's nice too is that technically I can actually go with a fatter tool, rough it out, and we have an operation called rest machining, where I can go with like a smaller tool, and if that tool can get into like that corner pocket, it would only get the areas to where the smaller tool will get into, which is really
Do
powerful.
the first operation, and then the next one, you could say use the smaller end mill to get into the smaller stuff, and click the rest of the checkbox.
Correct, correct. And speaking of that, just so you know, is that let's say if I wanted to do a rest machining, I'd do this same approach of let me go through and do adaptive.
I'm like Jedi Knight, and so when I
But under geometry, where it has rest machining, I would say from previous operation. Because what that does is it's saying, look at the previous operation and get this tool into anything that tool's going to get into. That's the key right there.
I don't think you do anything wrong. I don't think I did.
If you had a chamfer on the outside edge of that inner
Yep.
square,
Uh-huh.
I don't think
would
you
it,
do anything.
under
I think
the 3D adaptive clearing, would it chamfer it? Or would you have to put a chamfer tool in there?
I would put a chamfer tool in there. Yeah. So
If you didn't, would it follow the chamfer?
it would. It depends on that angle, right? So if it's like, if it could get into it, then it'll do it, right? But it might be staggered.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
gonna take 6 passes instead of 2.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yep.
I'm not thinking.
So what else can we do? I mean, we talked when we adaptive clear, right? We rough everything out, and if you guys noticed, probably didn't notice, but kind of talk about it. But if I want to ever edit a toolpath, remember it's always going to be a right click, right? So if I actually click on the adaptive, right click, and go to edit. Also too, you see it right here, I think 6 items down, I have machine time. I could click on machine time and it'll tell me it takes 12 minutes to rough this guy out, right? Or I can go in there and change my step over and just plunge all the way down because I'm adaptive clearing it and it'd probably cut it in half, right? But I mean, 12 minutes, I'm almost done. Like all I gotta do is drill some things out, do a finishing pass, and that's it. But 2, if I edit, right click and I edit, just to show you guys, under passes, I have stock to leave turned on. So I'm not technically done here, right? I gotta do a finishing pass on it, and I can go through and do maybe like a pocket finish pass. I can go in and do an adaptive clearing finish pass and change my feeds and speeds if I want.
If you're
I can do a
wondering,
contour.
These are hover help.
Yep.
He didn't do anything other than hover his mouse over the thing and it gives him the help.
Great point. So that's just something really to kind of keep in mind here.
How'd you get the edit?
The edit. So you wanna right click on a.
So you have to close the simulator?
Yep. If you're still in simulate,
Yeah, if
you
you're
have to,
still in simulate,
you gotta close simulate. I at least want you guys to understand that, you know, we're walking through these phases here, and that's why you guys are here, to learn these practices and apply what you feel is best based on the material you're using, the tools you're using. You have the flexibility to adjust this, right? So technically, I can do a finishing pass, but let's talk about contouring, right? Because maybe I want to go around the outside edge of this part here, for example. Right around maybe this outside edge, right? All the way around to do a finishing pass, right? On the outside. So I want to finish this wall off, right? So what do you guys think I need to do? 2D contour. But keep in mind too is that with 3D operations, you know, if I just click on that to talk about it, we've done a couple videos on it, but you have parallel, you have contour, you have ramping, you have we give you all of these. You want to do text engraving, go use the trace command. You want to do, we added this new one which is actually pretty tight in this latest release called project. So if you draw like type in text, right, using our text command, not even on a surface, just like on a plane, and then go to cam, it would automatically project the toolpath onto any surface that's underneath it. Nice, it's tight, really cool. Or you can use the trace command and then change the axial direction and then machine down a quarter of an inch, however deep you want it to be. Anyone heard of V-carve?
Yeah.
So that's coming to Fusion. Yep, which is nice, for free. So we're just enhancing the technology more and more. WaterJet's going to come out with more if you guys use WaterJets at work, plasma, laser, we have all that functionality. You see it right here. See it says WaterJet? I mean, we can do all that. We can use a ShotBot, whatever you guys have. You guys have any additional routers. Okay, so let's do a 2D contour. We'll do a bore, even if we have time, then we'll just post out. At least when you guys understand how to post out, because this is great. If you can't get it to your machine, then this is uneventful. So number one is let's drop down under 2D and come down to 2D contour, please. Now, could I technically use, if you notice it used the last tool that I had remembered, which is nice. One more time. Drop down under 2D and come straight down to 2D contour. If you notice too, if I use 2D contour all the time, I can come over to the very end of it and say add the toolbar, and now it's always going to be on my toolbar now. So I can always go straight here and say 2D contour if I want to do that, which is nice. So what tool? Probably remember the last tool you used, right? So now we're going to talk about geometry, because you realize that everything has been magic so far. You didn't have to touch any parts, you didn't have to touch any edges. It just go ahead and machines it all and faces it for me. But let's say you want to start recognizing certain features you want to machine, and this is where this comes into play. So if you click the geometry tab for me, I want to do a finishing pass along the outside of this pocket. This boss right here. So if I hover over, you notice that how my cursor is trying to pick up edges automatically? Because what does a 2D contour do? Yeah, it goes around the edge. So what I'm going to do here is if you guys hover over this outside edge and just click that, it's going to say, well, you want to machine along the outside of that. Now, a trick is, if you click on the arrow, it flips the direction of where it's machined. So I don't want the arrow on the inside because that means I'm going to gut my part out. That's not correct. By default, it's always going to be on the outside of the edge you select. So once again, I'm going through 2D, coming down to 2D contour. I'm just coming over here now to the geometry tab, coming right over and clicking this outside edge. And all I have to do is say enter. And it's going to show me that profile. Yes, sir.
Is it always climb milling? Is that a default?
Helix. Yep. By default, it's helix, we call it. Or technically, I don't need helix, right? Because if I have to machine 100 of these parts, or I have this on a tombstone, if that extra helix takes me an extra minute times how many on your tombstone, 30 or whatever, that's 30 extra minutes, right, of it helixing down. So what we can do, just for demonstration purposes, I'll show you is that under my passes tab, under my linking tab, I have something called ramp. and I could actually pick the type of ramp. Well, this one is actually going to go straight down because I'm doing a 2D contour. But let's say, for example, if I was under adaptive clearing, under linking, under ramp, I have the flexibility of doing pre-drill, plunge, helix. So you have different options on how you want that tool to come down.
You're climb milling rather.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
So you can switch tool direction.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
But
My
that's
bad.
the default. Is
Helix. Correct. Yeah. My bad. Think of something else. Hopefully that was the value.
Then how do you switch it? You just click on the arrow?
Yeah. If you ever want to flip the direction of where it's going to be cutting, is on the geometry, you just click on the arrow, and that flips the direction of where it's going to cut, inside or outside.
What about conventional versus climb?
Conventional versus climb. Yep. So that's going to be under linking.
So now he's talking conventional versus climb, which I have no idea what that means. Well, just announcing it's
So
right
now
now here.
climb milling would be going clockwise.
Yep. So right here. So under sideways compensation, you have left climb, a climb milling, or right climb, which is a conventional. Just a tab. So under the passes tab.
But the default is ambidextrous.
Climb. Correct. Correct. Default is climb, and then you can change it.
That's what you were asking.
That was
Yeah. I thought when you went like this, I'm like, oh, the helix. Yeah, you can switch that to climb if you want.
No,
Oh, see, now you're shilling. So, I'm begging,
So anyhow, I think we've all had that 2D contour, and what I'd like you guys to do, just simulate it for me. Right click on setup, come down here to simulate. I can turn on the stock and just hit play. Watch this guy roll.
You have one already?
No.
Because the Tormach only goes
That's a good question.
140.
You can
Do
change
you
that.
have to change it, or can you leave it at that big number, and it'll only go as fast as it can?
I'm not too sure, but I think
I always change it.
Yeah, I always change it, and then I think it's just
And then, does that change the corresponding?
there's formulas that change with it too.
Okay.
So the nice thing is that if you came into let me just show you guys this. I think one question came up on like formulas and stuff, and I just want to show you guys this, which is pretty cool. Is I'm just going to show you it.
What are you showing?
It's called, so if I wanted to get a little specific and understand how are all these things calculated, like for example, if I ever right click on one of my presets, I have something called edit expression or make default, meaning that let's say I'm always using like a step over of this, I always want that to be my default, I can set it as default and it's always going to run at that. But edit expression is nice too because it'll tell you like exactly like what the formula is to give me, the horizontal lead and radius, right? By edit expression, it says it's the tool diameter times 0.01. I could always go in and edit those expressions as I choose, which is nice.
So,
8 minutes, Curtis.
Yep,
so
8
you
minutes.
could put 5,140 as a
I'm assuming you did something
default.
wrong.
I did.
Right.
If you just touch the computer, you go back
And
over.
then
Yeah,
if you don't have that speed, you can.
I'd like to
Yep.
see that.
Yeah.
So
Where would I edit that?
Sorry.
First category?
Yep, first category. So under the, when you pick the tool,
Yeah.
I can just edit it right here, and then I can just say make default now if I change it, which is nice.
Because I have to change that every time I do an edit,
Yeah.
and I change that, I have to change everything.
Don't just make it default.
So guys, I'm just gonna take 1 minute while
Yeah.
we've got a little break here. Just thank everybody for coming, taking your Saturday to come here to Wanakee. Some of you guys traveled quite a long way. I think Curt came from San Diego, right?
Yeah, I brought you guys some beautiful weather, man.
So,
Bring us some rain.
thanks,
I'll
man.
get the
Some
rest
comment
of it.
cards out here. We really appreciate it. Just take a minute to fill this out and drop it on your way. This is the second. This is the second time we've done this. I think it's a lot better than the first time. Some guys are here the first time. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
okay. So we want to make the third time even
Can't
better.
do the simulation.
So
It is lovely.
I pass
This
these
is looking-
around.
I'll take a look.
If you're
Wait,
planning
stop
on
right now. I'll take a look.
swinging
Hey,
by
boss.
the meet and greet reception, it's
Oh,
about
wow.
half a mile of left turns around
So you can't
the
do
pond.
this. This is impossible.
It's
To
interesting
get
why
there,
you're doing
it's
that
called
right now.
Lucky's, there's maps out there. And,
Maybe they added it in this release. I gotta do
uh,
this.
They'll have information on your way out the door. We're hoping to see a lot of people there. Light snacks and,
They have some
When it goes my way, I really- I
They have straight line text.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Single line text.
and maybe we'll see you down at Lucky's.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, too, make sure you we need everybody to fill out one of those forms because they're giving away a Tormach. I'm just joking.
You have to read it.
Lego Tormach. Lego Tormach.
So we gotta make sure to tell them to log out before.
Yeah, log out because I don't want to steal your data.
So we gotta show them.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
let's
So,
do it
so
for 6
lastly is posting. Okay? All you got to do is click on the setup, right click, and do post process. Thank you, sir. Okay? Or what you can do is if you just click on the setup, click on where it says post process, right here. And then now, you should be able to pick whatever post you want, right? For us, the Path Pilot didn't make this update, but you can download it and just open it up here when you go to their website. You go to the Tormach website, they have the post for Fusion, and you can just post out using that one specifically.
Our next release, 2 months old.
Yeah, we'll have it.
It'll make it.
We'll have it by default. And we should have the late there as well.
Where's the Tormach?
The Tormach's not there
It
yet.
didn't make it. It didn't make
It has
this release.
Tormach Mach
in
3
Mach
if
3.
you want that, but not the Path Pilot.
It posted Mach 3.
Is Mach 3 dead? Is that still around, or are you guys?
Still around.
So okay. But any new purchases with the Path? Gotcha.
So when are you gonna get this?
It already works.
Yeah, it-
So with that, I mean, all you have to do. I'm just going to pick the Tormach. If I scroll down, and I pick Tormach, you know, and you look at this, right? With any other CAM software, you got to pay for posts. We give you all the posts automatically.
Can you show them where to go get it?
I'm sorry.
Can you show them where to go get it?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me show you where to go get the Tormach post right now. So if I just go to Tormach, let me click on here. I think it's going to be under post processor, which makes sense, right? And then first one, Autodesk Fusion 360. So I think if you guys notice that if you go ahead and post process out and say okay, just save, save as, I'll type a number. And then by default, it'll launch our IO bracket viewer. And there's your post. There's your code. Face, adaptive, everything is there for you. Yes, sir.
Are tool changes pauses built in?
Yes.
So before we end, why don't you bring up Fusion?
Yep.
Now you've all logged in with your accounts, right? You don't want the next person to have your account. So in Fusion, you see here's Curt's name up here.
Yep.
If you pull down there, when you're ready, hit sign out. It will sign you out of Fusion and delete all the data that you've used automatically on that local machine. But everything you've said, everything, there's nothing we saved, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you're now wiped from this machine.
Yes, sir.
Is there a way to access command line?
Within Fusion?
Like AutoCAD?
No.
No.
We don't have that.
Doesn't exist.
Are there any major capability differences between this and HSM with Inventor?
No. So it's the same technology.
Yeah.
It's that HSM Works is more mature,
Yep.
and we're just taking everything over. It's just taking us time.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So the difference is like the CAD capabilities then is,
Well, HSM Works and Inventor is a full CAD.
yeah.
So the difference is we're slowly migrating everything that's in HSM Works for Inventor to this platform. But the majority of it's already here, and if you want, we can offline talk about the differences. But it just hasn't all made it yet.
Gotcha.
It would all come. 5-axis is coming out in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this product?
In this
In
product.
this product.
Yep.
Can you import AutoCAD objects into this?
Do you want 3D or 2D? The answer is yes, both. DWG step, I just 3D DWG, 3D step if you want. SAT.
You look at your G code.
Yeah, you can have those, there's a whole other stack of them if you don't have a mouse pad.
The tool numbers that you're gonna use.
There are mouse pads
You
and
can
one
change those
charger
tool
cable.
numbers to match what you
Yeah,
have in
you want a magnet for your
Pathpilot.
machine.
Like in Pathpilot, I put my tool one is something, my tool two is.
Thank you, everybody, for your
Custom for your
time.
own custom library.
So you can change that G code program that comes up, it just erase line.
Yeah. Go ahead and edit it. Good old time.
Yeah. You
And
can't.
you have straight line text, I haven't found that.
For using text and then type it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it comes out,
It's
it's
not
not saying to
filed.
do a T.
Upload is what it
It's
says.